Hey everyone, wanted to give you guys an update on what I'm doing for a change in the way that the panels are going to be mounted. So to give you an idea of what I've done before, I took a RV frame, if you will. It is two pieces of punched angled aluminum. They go on the top of an RV, and then another two pieces that go underneath the panels. There's two arms for you to adjust it, and it pivots at one end so that you can move it up and down. Therefore, if you're traveling, you could point your RV, either the front or the back, probably the front, because usually the sleeping part's in the back, toward the sun. So the sun would hit the front of your vehicle, so you would set the panel up so that you could tip it upward, right? So that it could face into the sun. Now, I've got a couple of problems with that setup. The way I've got it mounted is on a pair of 4x4s. So the 4x4 acts as if it were the roof of the RV. But the 4x4s, instead of being horizontal, are vertical. That means that all of the weight, if you will, is on those pivot points at the top. Now, the thing that I don't like about what I'm using right now is the fact that it's all aluminum. The pivots at the top, I believe, are steel, but they're going into an aluminum frame, and anybody who knows what happens when steel hits aluminum over and over again, it wears away at it. I do like the fact that it has those two extra arms on it. So at the bottom of my panels, I've got 4 panels hooked together with this frame behind it. But I have a linear actuator at the bottom. Now, a linear actuator is a device, in this case, it works via screw. As the screw turns, the actuator extends, which allows me to change the angle of that panel without having to go out and do anything with, trying to get in the proper position to push the thing up and then hold it in place while I do the side pieces to support it more. All I have to do here is undo the side pieces that are holding it in place, power this thing on, move it up or down the way I want to, and then lock those side pieces into place. But again, the issue I have is the fact that where it really needs to hold is just at the top. It doesn't need all the extra hold on there because it's not on the roof of an RV. So I'm redoing it by using a pair of garage hinges, which are steel, 14 gauge steel, a couple of pins that you would use if you were towing something. So if you had a small tractor and you were towing, these are the types of pins that you would drop in there. Again, these are steel. And I'm using 2 steel angle pieces as the frame behind the panels to hold them in place. I'll be doing another set of 4 panels. But what I had done with the original set is put a long angled piece of punched steel on the top and the bottom of each pair of panels, and then put a set on the side. Now, for the way I had it set up at the time, which was moving it as a single unit, that made sense, right? Everything was hooked together. But because this is going to be put up in place, I won't need to have quite as much framing around it. So before, I was manually moving it around till I could get it up into place. This time, it's going to be right in place. So at a height of about 12 feet on the 4x4s for the new set, I'm going to put these 2 garage hinges out on the side. Now, a garage hinge has a center piece to it that's open. So if the garage hinge is left open and hooked into place, I have a nice, heavy, strong connection to the 4x4 at that point. I put these 2 pins that are capable of helping while towing into place. And then in addition to that, I will have this steel frame that comes down that's punched folded aluminum. At the bottom, I'll put another punched folded aluminum piece in there like I did with the Other one, maybe to allow for an ease of a single linear actuator to push things up and down. I might change this design up a little bit, but each of the two panels will be hooked together in one point. So at the top panel, at the top of it, there'll be a folded piece of, or an angled piece of punched steel holding those two panels together, and at the bottom of the bottom two. So then they can be brought into place and attached to the frame that's already set to pivot. Now, this design does not have currently a pair of arms to hold it into position, although that shouldn't be too hard to set up with something similar like the pin and hinge framing that I've got right now. But what it'll allow me to do is have an all steel pivot section and steel holding the panels together. Now, the panels are not overly heavy. They come in at about 14 pounds per panel. Two panels together is going to be 28 pounds, and the metal piece on the top comes in somewhere around 6 to 10 pounds of steel. So we'll go with the bottom part there. You're talking at about 30 pounds per two panels. So the panels get lifted up, put into place, bolted to the frame behind it, and we're on to the next set. I might, which I didn't do with the other set, it hooked them directly to the panels. In this case, I might use roof mounting. If you've seen a roof mount, the way it usually works is there's a bent piece of aluminum or steel that then attaches to the panel and then attaches to the roof. And in this case, it'll attach to the panel, and then it'll give me a single point of contact to attach to the framing that I'm putting behind it. And what this will give me is something that should be durable for many years. I'm going to spray down all the steel and make sure that it's got a rust-proof coating over it. But it should allow for this to hold up under a lot of varied conditions, and I should be able to set it up in such a way that I can fold it flat or just about flat. If I want to go completely flat, then I have to set it up in such a way that the linear actuator can be dropped out to fold it in. I don't think I'm going to need to do that, but it'll fold down as far as the linear actuator will let it go. Thing about linear actuators, if you think about it, you've got a shaft inside this tube and a screw that's going to push the shaft up and down. The tube has to be greater than the size of the shaft. So if I've got an 18-inch shaft coming out, or an 18-inch throw on that shaft, the tube it's going into has to be greater than 18 inches. The motor is off to the side, so you don't have to take into account the motor at the bottom, but at the very least, it has to be the same length as the shaft. So if it's going to go out 18 inches, the piece it has to fit into has to be at least 18 inches. So that's a 36-inch distance. That means that if I wanted to go back all the way, I can only go down to 18 inches. So it would always be 18 inches and whatever degrees that comes out to from the mounting point that I put it at. But by using the steel setup, I'm hoping to have something that's going to hold up better than the aluminum. As a matter of fact, I may take the aluminum one out after a year or so just to replace it with the steel setup if the steel holds up. Again, the biggest difference to me is the fact that the piece that I'm using on the first set, the framing I got from Renogy, it's very hard to get those frames at this point. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, as I said, they're aluminum and they've got a little bit more to them than I actually need. So if I don't use those, I'm getting just off-the-shelf stuff, which should be easy to replace if something happens to it, and easy to find, And therefore, because it's so ubiquitous, it'll be cheaper, right? If it's something's easy to find and it's something that's used a lot, it's going to be less expensive than these pre-designed frames. The other thing that comes of this is it's very hard to find the larger panels. So 100 watt panels are usually very easy and inexpensive to find. Pricing goes up from there. These are EcoFlow panels. EcoFlow has a 175 and they have a 400, but you can't get the 175s or the 400s because they're sold out. So if I'm going to put this together and I want to do it now, I have to come up with a different way to do it. So the situation I found myself in is, well, if I've got 4 100 watt panels, and I do have another set of 4 of those that I'm going to use for this next set, I can just hook those panels together, hook them in series. And series basically is the same thing when you put multiple batteries into a device, right? The positive from one battery goes into the negative of the next battery, etc., all down the line. Same thing happens with solar panels. So the positive from one goes into the negative the next, all the way around. And in this case, it's almost a circle. So one panel goes into the next, which then goes to the next, which goes to the next, and then you end up with these 2 leads left, a positive and a negative, that you hook into your system. We'll do a quick parallel serial difference here. If they were in parallel, each one of those leads would have to come directly into the system. In series, you get the 2 leads that come off. You can do a hybrid of the two, where the 2 top panels are in series and the 2 bottom panels are in series, and then you have 2 leads coming in, 2 sets of leads. But here's why you want to make a difference between these two. In a parallel configuration, your amperage is going to go up because that's going to get added together. However, because of that, in a parallel situation, if one of the panels goes dark, it doesn't matter. You'll get less amperage coming in, but the volts will remain the same. If you're in series, right, and you're hooking them up in series, your voltage is going to go up. But if one of those panels falls into shade, it degrades the entire system because of the fact that they're all in series and they're feeding one to the next. However, if you want to get the higher voltages coming in, if I want that 400 watts, I have to have 4 100 watt panels together. I want my watts to add up. I do not want my amps to add up because the system I'm going into has a limit on the number of amps it can take in. 400 watts, I put the other set of 4 panels in and I wire those in series as well. That will allow me to have 800 watts, but still keep my amperage at around 6. But with the other way, and I fed both of those in, my amperage would go up to almost 12, but that's okay because it's still below the threshold of the panels. Now, the way I can wire that up is once I've got the first 4 done, I can take one of the leads off of the first 4, feed that positive lead out to the negative lead on the other set of 4, right? And then take the positive lead that comes off that other set of 4, and that'll replace the positive lead that I had off the first 4. And it becomes a circle on one that feeds out to a circle on the other. So it's very doable, and that's probably how I'm going to set the system up. But the big news for this is I've got the first panel up. It's functioning. I got 400 watts the other day from that panel. So I've got the full 100% of what the panels could provide from the panel the other day. The other set is going to try out this new configuration that I've got to see how I could set up something that's probably going to be more resilient, something that will hold up longer term. I just have to make sure that I keep all of the metal parts treated. Now the pins, because they were designed for outdoor use, are already chromed, so I don't have to worry about those, but the framing, I'm going to have to probably do something to protect that, as well as the hinges. Now, that's not something I have to do with the other set because that's all aluminum. So that's not going to rust, and I don't have to worry about the aluminum of the frame. I just have to worry about the steel that I framed the devices with. But that's what I got for you guys this week. Project's moving along. Hopefully I'll have the video up in another week so that you can see how that actuator works and get a feel for how that system's going to work together. And that's what I got for you guys this week, and I'll talk to you all next week.